every part of our transport system is struggling. I mean, all modes of public transport put large numbers of people in confined spaces, which doesn't really work in these times of coronavirus. So how do we solve the coronavirus transport crisis? Let's look at the London Underground. How can people use the tube while keeping physical distancing? Is that even possible? During peak hours, the Northern Line, London's busiest line, runs well over capacity, carrying almost 1,200 people on each train. Really packed. But on a physically distanced train, people use alternate seats and no one is allowed to stand. So each train would carry just 124 passengers, a huge reduction. So what would this mean for commuters? If demand was the same as before, our train would be full before it left the first stop. So you would need to ration all the passengers boarding trains along the line. Let's look at Clapham North to see what this might look like. To take its fair share of commuters, only 4 people could actually get on each train. That means just 96 people can actually travel from the station each hour, leaving over 900 commuters waiting outside. And this queue of commuters, physically distanced of course, would stretch back 2 stops. And we'll see these problems on trains, buses, trams, coaches, you name it. It's estimated that Britain's transport network will be reduced by 90% across the board. The obvious alternative to public transport is driving. But there's a problem with that too. Let's take Newcastle for instance. If 90% of people who usually use public transport drive to work instead, that would be an increase of 48% more cars on the road. And Newcastle roads are already at their limit. So in this scenario, you're looking at total gridlock. And it's a similar story all over the country. But Boris Johnson has urged people to get back to work. So what are we supposed to do?
That poses quite a serious problem for quite a lot of people. People who need to travel on public transport but have been told that public transport is dangerous. And those are people that are being told to go back to work. You can't work from home if you're a cleaner or whatever it is. If you live out and out of London and you don't have a car, it's sort of crazy really. They're stuck in this position where they've been told to go back to work but not told how do we get there safely.
There's one area of our transport network that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's active travel, or cycling and walking.
In England, about 1.9% of all trips to and from work are by bike. If you were to get that up to just 5%, so doubling it and a little bit more, you would suddenly have 1.3 million more people who are not driving or taking the train or taking a bus. And a certain number of people are going to have to drive, they won't have any other choice. So the more people you have who have shorter commutes, who can cycle or walk, then the more space there is for everyone else, whether on public transport or on the roads.
This is significant, and it's the kind of thinking that is shaping the way that cities all over the world are trying to tackle this problem.
Paris has been at the forefront of introducing bike lanes and pedestrianising main thoroughfares. The mayor there has been pushing on this stuff for quite a long time, and I think it was in February that she first unveiled the idea of 15-minute cities. Where you live, you should be able to walk or cycle within 10 or 15 minutes. So your shopping, schools, let's say work, the leisure centre, the parks. Obviously, you might need to travel a bit further once in a while to do different things, but the idea is to have livable neighbourhoods, so you're not forced into your car to drive 10 miles to this or 5 miles to that. And I think that's quite a powerful idea. It's a simple idea, but it's a powerful idea in terms of reshaping how we organise cities.
And there's a similar approach in other European cities. Milan, Barcelona, Brussels, Berlin. And it's not just Europe. We're seeing these kind of policies in cities all over the world. So what about the UK?
You've had Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, announcing one of the biggest traffic-free zones in Europe. No private cars, you'll only be allowed to have buses and pedestrians and bikes. And this is an incredibly ambitious thing. And they're going to not only get it done, but get it finished in 6 weeks. So this is a complete kind of paradigm shift. And lots of other cities are doing that. Manchester was already building a very, very big network of cycle and walking routes, but it's now going to expand those very quickly. Liverpool's doing the same. Bristol's going to pedestrianise the historic centre of the city. The Scottish government has announced £10 million for cities there to bring up these temporary bike lanes. And the thing about it is that it's not as good as a properly designed lane, but in terms of getting people on bikes, it's good and it's very cheap and it's very quick.
There's a wider conversation going on at the moment about how we can use this crisis to readdress how we think about transport. And this is pushing the question of urban design squarely to the forefront of policy discussions.
It's not so much that they didn't officially believe in walking and cycling before, but they never really did much about it. But now, the tone in terms of the speed and the seriousness has totally changed.
I'm announcing a £2 billion package to put cycling and walking at the heart of our transport policy.
The public desire for this kind of change is undeniable. 58% of people back the introduction of cycle lanes on urban main roads, along with increased funding for walking and cycling infrastructure.
It's changed people's perceptions of what's possible. We're talking about a 40% reduction in emissions to, I think it was a 10% reduction in emissions from the most critical particulate matter. Across Europe, there have been 11,000 fewer deaths from air pollution because of the coronavirus crisis. That's in a matter of weeks. The long-term impact will be even more stark, I would think. People just recognise the air smells a bit better, it feels a bit nicer, the sky's a bit bluer. The figures back it up, but people are experiencing this in real time. So these are having a big real-world impact on people's health, as well as their experience of their own cities in terms of cleaner air that they can see and feel.
So it's no wonder that 71% of people are concerned about the possibility of air pollution returning to pre-lockdown levels once restrictions are lifted.
The benefits are just amazing, and it goes beyond even health, it goes beyond pollution. Cities suddenly become much more equitable, they become less noisy, they become more livable. And it could be a complete transformation in the way people live. And I'm really excited about it. I just hope it's going to work.
Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments how your commute has been affected by COVID. We also want to hear what your local authority is doing to improve active travel in your area. I'll put sources and further reading in the description. Good luck if you're trying to get to work.